Boy, oh boy, we are on live. Welcome everybody to episode 16 of this humble little Zoomcast that commenced through some initial lockdowns. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but we're back. But we are joined today on Zoomcast by a very, very special guest. El Capitan, the Presidente, the Chief, whatever you want to call him. It's Marshall White's very own CEO, Simon Jovanovic. Simon, welcome to Zoomcast.
Matty, thank you very much for having me. I feel very, very humbled. And hopefully I'm the first and last guest in lockdown 3. And we're done and dusted in a couple of days.
I hope you're right. I've always wanted to get you on this. You and I had a little beverage together at one of our Christmas functions, and I just put it out on the table that I might be calling on you. I didn't think I'd be calling on you because specifically to do with another bloody lockdown, but timely and apt, I think, to get you on to have a chat, not only to the Marshall White family, of course, but the industry in general as somebody who occupies the position that you do.
Thank you, Matty. Hopefully I can share a few good insights with the audience.
Well done. Now we're not too serious on Zoomcast. You might know we've well, there you go, the Peroni in hand and a little beverage for myself to kick things off. We've got to get through lockdown somehow, and I know that you might have been back to homeschooling today. Would that be right?
Yeah, I was, and geez, how much did we miss that? What were the highlights? I think my 10-year-old Millie spent an hour in the pool trying to entice the dog to jump in, followed by the dog running into my office and just splashing water everywhere. I think my son Tom watched more surfing videos on YouTube than he did any work. But pleasingly, my daughter Bella, who she's 13 at the end of the week, she's the good one of the 3, and she sat there very diligently working away all day. But no, look, my wife and I are already looking forward to getting him out of the house.
Yeah, please don't keep us in any longer. We'll touch on what your world was like briefly in terms of the majority of 2020 and those lockdowns. But Simon, quite sincerely, lockdown 3.0, what was your initial reaction? And secondly, from a real estate perspective, what are you hearing or seeing in relation to what the next days or weeks might be looking like for our industry?
Yeah, okay, mate. Look, a couple of points then. So, look, first reaction. I'll need to watch my language when I respond here.
Not on Zoomcast, you don't.
I mean, what the fuck has Daniel Andrews given us this time? But look, I guess first reaction, pretty calm. We've actually, unfortunately, we've been here before. We know what to do. I think lockdown 1, we were caught off guard, obviously, but credit to the team. We did a lot of work to prep ourselves. We transitioned to online pretty seamlessly. When lockdown 2 came, initially for 4 weeks, we were well prepped. That dragged on for, was it 11 weeks? I think. God, I'm trying to scratch that memory from my head, but that dragged on and on. But look, I think this time it was actually pretty calm. The news came out lunchtime Friday. I shot out an email to the team. But everyone just picked up really well. We can operate fully remotely. We had quite a few members of the sales team bring their auctions forward to Friday night.
Yep.
And the feedback from all those auctions, lockdown 3 has not scared the market. The market's going to keep moving. It's very resilient. Interest rates are low. We've actually seen, and you would have seen this in the Albert Park office. There's real buoyancy in the market. So we actually sold all the properties we took to auction Friday night. We sold. We had a handful that went through online auctions Saturday, and all in all for the weekend, we only had 1 property that didn't sell. But that'll get cleaned up this week.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a really good demonstration of how resilient the market is. This will be frustrating, but even if it was to go for a couple of weeks, I cannot see any detrimental impact to the market. Good property is always going to sell. We've had a lot of vendors and a lot of buyers make decisions over the past 12 months and bring forward decisions. So that momentum in the market will definitely stay. We're actually predicting a really solid couple of months as we run to June 30. I believe it's going to be a great opportunity for our industry to help out the buyers and vendors.
Yep. It sounds like you're saying, Simon, it's a process tweak thing potentially, as opposed to, is it actually going to have any detrimental impact on the market itself?
Yeah, correct. And look, would we rather be doing auctions on the street on a Saturday afternoon? Definitely. But you're right, it's a process thing. We spoke to vendors. We brought some things forward to a live auction Friday night. Others shifted online. Yeah, you're right. It's a process thing. We know what to do, and we just need to speak to the vendors and buyers and make sure they understand that we're very confident and capable to operate in these conditions.
Yep. And from a team perspective, and this isn't a Marshall White chest beat podcast by any stretch of the imagination, but I have to say, and I've heard this from a lot of people, that your communication style throughout COVID in general, and particularly when it started and everybody was learning on the run and certainly didn't have a manual or a handbook to go to deal with some of the changes that the industry took. Your communication style was absolutely outstanding. As the CEO of one of the biggest companies from a real estate perspective in the country, what were some of the most important points that you wanted to touch on from your level of communication? Was it just keeping people in the loop as often as you could, or did you actually give them a plan and a way out of it? Yeah,
Matty, it was actually keeping people comfortable. That was the really big focus. You said before, we didn't have a playbook for this. We were learning as we went. We were very conscious that the team was looking for guidance and advice. So we just tried to have very open, honest conversations. If we knew something, we'd communicate it. If we didn't know it, we'd be honest and say, hey, we think this is happening, but we're not sure. We also, from the outset, we really took a focus of, let's support our people, because if we get the people through, lockdown will come to an end eventually, and it's the people that we need on the other side. So we took a real personal interest in the affairs of a lot of team members, what was happening on their family front, what was happening on their financial and health front, to make sure everyone got through. But really, with the communications, we just tried to be very open and transparent. We tried to be very timely. Like everyone, I spent a lot of time listening to those press conferences, reading the DHSS website and government briefings, just trying to interpret what it means for real estate, and then just communicating as quickly as possible. And look, and you'll remember, sometimes that meant we were communicating a couple of times a day as new information came to hand. But really just to try and give a bit of comfort, and also being honest. There were some times where we had some not so great news to share. But there are also a lot of times where we had some really good stories to share that came through. So just open and frequent communication. Focus.
Well said. I think that's been evident. That's continued through to this week. You're on the front foot again. As soon as the news came out, and we were able to put a plan into place for the weekend that was, and hopefully the next coming weekends will be a little bit more smooth sailing if we can get out on midnight on Wednesday.
I should say as well, Matty, just on the content. No, you're right. There were quite a few times when I'd actually just sit there at my desk on a Friday or a Sunday night just thinking, shit, what do I say today? It'd either been a good or a bad day. But I think just even that, just frequency of communication, even if we didn't necessarily have new news, just make sure there was frequent, consistent communication.
Yep. And you sought some advice, or you sort of tried to pick patterns, I guess, with the industry and other parts of the world that have been through lockdowns. NZ, of course, being one of our closest allies, and Megan Jaffe and her team from that real estate firm over the pond were kind enough to give us some time and advice that Marshall White decided to implement to try and keep their team positive, their clients positive, and to get through it.
Yeah, correct. And look, Megan was great. She's an absolute superstar in the business she runs in New Zealand, and it was actually great. We'd been having some ongoing conversations with Megan quite regularly, and it was fantastic actually when we spoke to her when they went into lockdown and kind of said, look, if there's anything we can do But really nicely, as soon as we went into lockdown, Megan was on the front foot, and we had some really good conversations around what had worked well with their team, what are the things that they'd implemented that had worked, what are the things that we shouldn't do. We actually had Megan come to one of our company meetings and share some of those stories. And look, probably one of the key things we took away from Megan was that, the Tuesday company meeting that we implemented, just even getting some guest speakers along, some different voices, especially when we were in that long lockdown and we couldn't be doing a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
You'll recall we had Michelle Payne come and speak to us. We had Gay Waterhouse. We had more speakers than just the racing identities, but we had some great speakers just to keep the group going and some different spike some different interests as well.
Yeah.
And look, there was also a really good camaraderie as well across just the real estate network in general. I spoke to a lot of businesses interstate, and also a lot of businesses locally. There was a group of about 15 businesses. We were petitioning the government very hard in the background as well. And that really brought the industry together well, which was really pleasing to see. But there were, all of the big brands in Melbourne. We were all communicating in the background and working together to try and get some of the government regulation around our industry turned around so that we could help those buyers and vendors who needed our assistance and the landlords and tenants as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that was quite incredible. Actually, we work in a pretty competitive environment, which I think most salespeople do. But for the greater good, for the purpose of us coming out of lockdown or being able to get buyers through properties, or certainly being able to help tenants and landlords from the property management side of things, as you rightly said, the bigger companies banded together and stood on the same side of the fence for a change and tried their absolute utmost to get some decisions overturned or to get a level of communication out to all staff that are probably were quite hungry to learn what was next or what was coming, and that's quite incredible. I'm not sure many industries would get on the side of their, use the word competitor. We're not at war, but for the greater good, to be able to work through what was some challenging times from an economic sense.
Yeah, and it's probably a good plug as well, because we do a lot of work with them. At those meetings, we also had Jason Pellegrino, the CEO of Domain. We had Owen Wilson, CEO of REA. Both being in those meetings. And they are fierce competitors day to day. But they both rang up and said whatever our companies can do to actually help. So great to have some industry support as well.
Yeah. Well said. There were a lot of things in COVID we'd like to forget or not necessarily go back to, but I reckon there were a couple of shining lights that came out of lockdown periods, or a better use of technology, or bringing people closer together, valuing what's most important in life, potentially depending on how deep and woo you want to get about that sort of stuff. But for you personally, Simon, were there a couple of things that you might have learnt in lockdown or revisited in lockdowns previously that you're going to keep implementing moving forward?
I developed an appreciation for Scotch during lockdown 2. Yeah, I think we were mentioning Starwood Scotch. Good plug for the guys down in Port Melbourne there.
Good.
Look, jokes aside, I mean, it was actually interesting. I mean, I've got 3 young kids, and I know quite often the kids would beg and say, "Look, Dad, please, can't you just go back to the office?" And I was like, "No, I have to stay at home." But look, it was actually nice to spend that time with the kids. My wife's she's a primary school teacher. She teaches prep, so she was very busy as well. She had 25 prep kids. I was still working, throughout the day as well. So it was a busy household. Yeah. But you did get to see a side of your kids that you don't always get to see. They probably saw some good aspects of me and some bad aspects as well. So look, and a lot of people have said it, but it was nice to spend the time with your kids. Look, habits. I did try and start playing guitar through this, trying to teach myself. Eventually, I gave up after the kids they just yell at night, saying, "Dad, please stop! It's so bad."
Was that the influence of your dress sense at the Marshall White Christmas party, dressing up as a member of KISS with the likes of Chiminello, Brooks, and Nickel?
No, definitely that wasn't an influence there. That was a favour out to Marcus, which yeah, look, I was a bit nervous about. Yeah, but for those in the audience that don't know, that the four of us turned up dressed as Kiss to the Marshall White Christmas party at the end of the year. It wasn't a fancy dress party, but I was a bit nervous how it would go down. But I think everyone had a good laugh. So that was good fun. No, look, it was actually really just, probably thinking, hey, if we're going to be stuck at home for a while, make it count. Try and get something out of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge reader, so I wasn't going to read 10 books. Lockdown 1, I ate and didn't stay that fit. Lockdown 2, I set myself a little challenge of just 7Ks a day. I either had to run or row 7Ks a day.
Right.
I threw in 120 push-ups a day as well for a bit of fun. So I was determined to come out of lockdown 2 in a better mental and physical state than I did in lockdown 1. So look, there's some of the things. But once again, just nice to have the time with the family. A lot of family meals and just finishing work at the end of the day and trying to shut yourself off was really important. So you could spend that time with my wife Lucy and the kids.
Good on you. Good on you. I think one of the other things you've worked on that you failed to mention is that golden tan that's doing plenty across the Zoom link. You're looking very crisp and sharp. How'd you manage to pull that off?
Look, Matty, I was lucky enough. I got up to Noosa on Boxing Day for a couple of weeks, which was nice. And unlike Melbourne, Noosa was 28 and sunny every day. The tan finishes about here because I spent a lot of time in the water surfing.
Good.
That's one of my real passions, which I did really miss during lockdown 2. I couldn't get down the coast, but I had a couple of great weeks up at Noosa. And look, for your listeners who go to Noosa at Christmas, it's typically not known as great surf, but we were very lucky. All the points were working, so we were just surfing Tea Tree National Park, Boiling Pot every day for a couple of weeks, and then managed to get a weekend down at Anglesey when I got back as well. So a couple of more showers, and the tan will have gone, no doubt.
We've got a Q&A with the audience coming up, and I did one for the first time with the great Damien O'Sullivan last week. Was a bit of fun, and I thought I'd try it again. And most of the questions, well, not most, but a few of the questions that have come through from the audience relate to surfing. So I'm not going to burn those questions. We'll leave them for later. But what is it about surfing specifically that you most enjoy? Is it just getting away from the world and getting to your own little space?
Yeah, and I should actually say I'm a crap surfer. I started surfing I just turned 45. I started surfing at 38, which is the wrong end. I refuse to jump on a longboard, so I've been battling away on a short board. Look, when I say I'm a crap surfer, I can jump up and do a few turns and have a bit of fun. I did a trip to Indonesia 2 years ago, which was probably one of the obviously any trip I take with my family and my kids. For those of you traveling with kids, they're also your favourites, but I say that a bit tongue in cheek sometimes. But the Indo surf trip was one of the best trips I've ever done. What is I love about surfing? It's you're away from technology. You can't have your phone out there. I find the water very calming. You have to keep your wits about you as well, because there's other surfers, there's waves, there might be rocks, there might be reef. So you're really just detached from everything. And I could go out and have a 2-hour surf and hardly catch a wave, but come back a better person for it. And I will happily jump in the car on a Sunday morning, drive to the coast, surf for an hour and a half in the middle of winter, and come home. It's just a. I'm going to sound really corny, but it's just a good cleansing experience.
Perfect. I thought that might be the answer, but I have. When you've got the Mediterranean blood, they typically don't surf. They eat and drink, but everyone's a bit different. Mate, prior to Marshall White, you were the CEO of Hocking Stewart. Marshall White, I've been at the company almost 6 years in May. We never had a CEO, so to speak. So obviously Jack and James, absolutely brilliant at what they do from a very top senior level of the board, the likes of Andrew Hayne, and the list goes on. but the specific role of the CEO for our company, and off the back of some of the great success you had with the Hocking Stewart Group, I'm curious, how did you transition out of the roles you were doing prior to getting into the real estate field, and then how did you specifically make the jump from Hocking Stewart, Bell now, of course, to Marshall White?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of questions there. Look, prior to Hocking Stewart, I'd actually most immediately I'd actually been working for a telco business. They were called Vocus or M2 actually, and they went through a merger with a company called Vocus. And when the merger went through, my role was really torn apart. Excuse me. So I actually ended up taking quite happily took a redundancy from that role at M2. From memory, it was actually my 40th birthday the day I took that redundancy, and I can still remember my then boss sitting down, and it's all very formal, and he's reading through the paperwork and hoping that I don't react badly, and he's halfway through and he goes, "Oh shit, it's your birthday." And I'm like, "Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, and it's a big one. You're 40, aren't you?" I was like, and he goes, "Oh, we shouldn't be doing this on your birthday." I said, "Mate, it is fine. I'm good. How much money are you going to give me? I'll be on my way."
Right.
So I think that was at 10 a.m. in the morning. I was back at the beach down at Anglesey by about 11:30. So look, that worked out all right. But look, I was only there for 12 months. Prior to that, I'd probably previous big role. I'd had 6 years with AGL. Probably key role there. I'd run residential and small business sales for AGL. So. I was the guy that used to send the door knockers to your door, but
thanks for that.
No, look, it was that was a great experience there, learning the energy industry.
Yep.
How did I end up at Hocking Stewart? I actually got called by a mate who'd been engaged to recruit for the CEO role at Hocking Stewart, and look, lucky for me, they're wanting a non-real estate person. I'd done some franchise work because Hocking Stewart is a franchise business. I'd done franchise work when I was at GE, General Electric, and also at AGL, running their franchise stores. So I had the franchise experience. They wanted non-real estate, and was lucky enough to meet the board and get an opportunity there. Spent a couple of years there, and it was actually through that process I got introduced to James Connell. Chair of Marshall White, and James and I stayed in contact and got to know each other. He actually, funny story, he actually advised me not to take the Hocking Stewart job originally, and I rang him up and said, "Look, thanks for your advice, but I've taken it." Look, now we stayed in touch over the next couple of years, and he also just through personal contact and some industry forums, he kept an eye on what I was doing, and then look, I was lucky enough. He gave me a call one day and talked about the transition and where the Marshall White business was going. And you're right, they hadn't had a CEO role before. But Marshall White, we're a business. We're looking to grow. We're looking to evolve. And we're a business we've got 290 team members now. We've now got 6 offices. We opened 2 offices last year, being Balwyn and Mornington Peninsula.
Yep.
And they realised in the evolution of their business, that they needed a CEO role to help, I guess, with the board, develop that strategy and then help implement and execute on that strategy, so that we continue to grow as a business and continue to be what I think is the best real estate business in the country. Our ownership model as well, being a privately held business, I believe we offer a much better outcome for not just our agents and team members, but also for our clients and vendors as well. Yeah. We generally, it's a bit of a line, but we do generally work as one team across the whole business, which from experience, Matt, is very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. It's an interesting stepping stone to get to where you've got to, and you've done amazing things in the role in such a short time. And I know the sales team are right behind you when you send out the levels of communication that you do. Tell me, so most real estate companies, when you look at the very top of whatever that company is, typically the person sitting at the top or near the top is a real estate agent at heart that has been there for a very long time, but incredibly successful as an estate agent, and then has to use that skill set to move into a leadership position, be it the CEO of that company or the managing director or the officer in effective control, hiring, firing, looking at ways to develop the business, et cetera, et cetera. As a non-real estate guy, with I guess more of a corporate hat on, if that's sort of a terminology you want to use, what are some of the strengths of salespeople that you admire, having seen them do what they do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
And equally, what are some of the attributes that you look at from the outside looking in that you feel could be vastly improved or enhanced, specifically to sales?
Yeah, okay. Look, good question. First of all, to look at Marshall White for a second, if you I'll touch on some of the names, but you look at our top 20 across the group. We are very privileged to have some of the best estate agents in the country.
Yep.
If you go to any real estate industry conference, there is always a Marshall White speaker on the agenda. You look at some of the guests you've had over the past 15, 16 episodes. You had JT, James Tostovan, I think a couple of weeks ago. Maddie, you've had Marcus Caminello on. But you look across all the offices, the Kate Stricklands of the world, the Andrew Campbells, the Mark Gregorys, James Redferns, the Jack Bonjornos. I mean, it's really an amazing lineup. So what is it that I look at and I see and you are right. I've worked in a lot of sales roles, but I've never sold a house. I've got my agent's rep, so if anyone wants me to come and stand on a door on the weekend, I can.
Good.
But I've never sold a house. But what I look at, and this frustrates me sometimes, I actually look at what our top team members actually do. And if we could just get everyone to replicate that. And the top team members, they're just very disciplined and they're very structured. And they've worked out a model that works and they just replicate it.
Yeah.
And look, here I won't name names, but they all have very, very similar habits. They might have slightly different ways to market, but they have a very consistent and repeatable approach. And then they're just structured and they repeat that on a daily and weekly basis. They're also self-reflective. They will pause a couple of times a year and look at what they need to tweak in their model. They take time to learn from others. But in the end, it's good discipline and good structure that ultimately drives a good result for them. You ask what frustrates me a little bit with some of the salespeople, I see so many, not so many, but I see some of our team members who have got amazing potential, but they don't stick to a process. They don't spend the time and commit and do the hard yards. But they might be looking for easy success early on. They should be actually spending the time and looking at some of these absolute champions of the industry that we actually have and work out how can I actually replicate their success.
Yep. So
what am I saying? The very, very good people have got a good structure and good process, and they religiously follow it. The people that are still building their careers, they jump around a little bit. They need to focus and work out their sales methodology, work out their approach to business planning, and then stick to it.
Yeah. And obviously it's interesting, right? So within each office or within each department, there are leaders and there are people that have done this for a very long time and have been quite successful at it, and perhaps using those sub-leaders, if you like, to go to for some immediate advice or education is going to be the benefit of not only the agent, but the company as a whole, because everybody's playing their part to get people to where they want to be.
Yeah, correct. And look, you look at, and I'll rattle off a couple of names. Anyone with inside Marshall White, they can call up James Redfern tomorrow and sit down and say, James, walk me through how to do a business plan. James has just got 20 plus years of really good, strong, consistent results because he's very structured in the way that he approaches that.
Yep.
You mentioned on your podcast, if you want to spend time with James Tosten and listen to how he prospects and see the discipline he does, you can go along and do that. Any of our top leaders and top salespeople will give people with inside Marshall White and also outside Marshall White at the time. But ultimately, the individual has to go back and implement it, and then implement it for an extended period, not just a week or a couple of weeks or a quarter, but really commit and commit to building that business over time.
Yep.
The success won't come overnight, but it will come with a good structure and good process.
Yep. Good. That's really well said, Simon. Really well said. What advice would you have? And I appreciate your husband, you're a dad, and we're getting close to dinner time, so I'm not going to keep you too long.
That's all right.
I've got a couple of questions, and I'm going to rip through some of the Q&A, which let me tell you, there's some good stuff in there. If a business, let's say a small business, for example, prior to working, not to inject myself into this, by the way, but prior to coming to Marshall White, I worked for a franchise in the western suburbs, and absolutely loved my time and great people, and still in contact with a lot of them to this day. But from a scale perspective, it was a smaller office. You were sitting in an office with 5 or 6 team members, and that was it. Despite being a part of this massive franchise, you certainly only connected with the 5 or 6 in your own office. For somebody who didn't have some leadership that perhaps was non-industry based, or we're thinking about trying to implement some levels of leadership that might be distant from what they've already got, what advice would you have for small businesses and small real estate business owners specifically?
Okay, look, first of all, Matty, I got to say, look, hats off and absolute respect to anyone who embarks and starts their own small business. I think it's an amazing achievement, and I really admire these people. They're putting everything on the line. My dad had he was in the automotive industry, had a couple of car dealerships, and with that, wore the highs and lows of that industry over. He was in automotive for about 30 years. So first of all, huge respect to small business people.
Great.
What would my advice be? Look, a couple of things. I mean, mentors. It's amazing the caliber of people who are willing to give you a bit of time, a bit of their time, and a bit of their insights, just by simply politely asking them. They're not looking for financial reward or to be showered with gifts. A lot of successful people that I know are quite humbled. If someone's willing to ask them, hey, Matt, can you give me some advice on what I should do in this aspect of my business? So look, seek out some mentors, mentors in the same industry, but also mentors outside that industry to get a different perspective. Look, the second one, and I don't always do this, it's something that I can improve. Put a plan in place.
Yeah.
Write it down. Make some achievable goals. Work out where you want to be in 5 years, but what are those small steps you're going to take along the way?
Yep.
Look, I don't think I'm sharing anything with the listeners that that they probably don't know, but
all good.
But I know when we look at Marshall White, we look at stuff. What do we do? What do we want to do in the next 90 days? What do we want to do in the next 12 months? We've also got some pretty big aspirations for 5 years down the track, and we start to join the dots. Things that we're doing now will help something that we want to achieve in a couple of years, and something that we want to achieve a couple of years after that. Yep. So having a plan, and then also reassess that plan as things change.
Yeah.
We never suspected COVID. That put a bit of a spanner in our works, but I'd like to actually think we've come out of better business. We used to manage our cash really well before COVID. Steph, our CFO, fantastic at that, but we manage our cash better now. Our use of technology. You'll go back 12 months. We did 10% electronic contracts, 90% paper contracts.
Yep.
We now do 99% electronic contracts. It's a good move for the business, good move for the industry.
Yeah. And for those who say, oh, Simon, I'm set in my ways, I'm not going to change, mate. I know, the REIV authority that sat in my car for the last 25 years, that's what I'm going to use. Because you would have come up with, and one of your challenges as a CEO, and it's a nice problem to have. The great Kane Lennon always says, Matty, it's a good problem to have. One of your challenges is you've got this beautiful blend at Marshall White between, and I hope I'm politically correct here, in old school and new school, in the way that some people happy to do business and have done it. And when you've been successful for such a long time, regardless of who comes in and tells you what to do, it'd be bloody difficult to say, all right, well, I'm going to try your way. It's like, mate, I've been there, I've done that. I'm happy to keep continuing. How difficult or a challenge is that for you on a daily basis or a weekly basis to amalgamate the two worlds?
Yeah, look, I don't think change is something that the real estate industry as a whole does that well.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge. If you actually look at the basic model, it hasn't really changed that much over the past 30 or 40 years. Okay, we got box and dice, and we've got fancy database tools and nice digital things, but the model hasn't really changed. Go back 30 or 40 years. You probably had a card system where you maintained your client database. You used a paper-based authority. You nurtured, you prospected, you listed, you sold. We do the same now. How do I get change through? What's my focus? At the end of the day, the old Whiffer model. What's in it for me? So Matt, why is it important for your personal business that you maybe transition to electronic authorities or electronic contracts? How's it actually going to help you? So probably find that compelling reason. I like to take people on the journey. Now, we could just say simply, Matt, no more, but I'd much rather have you engaged and understand that this is actually going to help my personal business. It's also actually making sure that we're offering services that are reflective of the market. I changed my home loan recently, and it was actually during lockdown. And I won't name the bank because I do like these guys, but they had to courier me paper-based home loan contracts.
Right.
And my wife and I have ended up with these two bloody big piles of contracts to go through.
Yeah.
Absolute pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to the bank manager, I said, this is just a shit process.
Yeah.
Where's your DocuSign?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we haven't adopted that yet. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I hope I've chosen the right bank.
Yeah.
So look, yeah, but ultimately, the Whiffer model, what's in it for me? Make it a compelling reason for the individual.
Yep. Yep. Well done. Well said. All right, we're going to go to this very nice question and answer segment on Zoomcast. Simon, I'm not joking when I say this. I reckon I've had about 25 separate messages come through with questions in it, and I thank everybody for getting amongst it. We can't get through all of them, otherwise you'll be here all night. So we're going to pick the eyes out of a few of them.
Can you, after this, can you give me the list of who asked the questions so I can hunt them down?
Don't worry, I'll be mentioning a few names on here because there's a couple of little cheeky comments. Let me tell you. Let's start off with a good one. So Jack Nickel, who's also a big surf fan, asks, "Is it true that you surfed in the WSL Pro Tour?" I think he's being a bit cheeky there about your surfing prowess.
Sorry, my dog's just come in to join me.
That's Ollie.
Yeah, this is Ollie.
Can you get Ollie on the screen? What have we got here?
Hang on, mate. Hey, jump up here. Can you see Ollie there?
There you go.
So, very, very hairy golden retriever.
Very good.
No, Jack Nickel. No, I haven't surfed in the WSL. That'd be a dream come true.
That's two cheeky questions in 2 weeks from Jack Nickel, so we're just going to keep an eye on him. The great Jack Moss, who I'm a massive fan of, very good guy. He said, "Simon, what attracted you to join Marshall White after working for a bigger, when I say bigger, a big real estate franchise? What were some of the key attributes of Marshall White that appealed to you the most?"
Look, so to Jack's question, look, just the caliber of the brand, and also everyone I met through the process, and even before that, I knew quite a few people who worked for Marshall White. So the caliber of the people, but also the position of the brand. I feel very, very privileged. I've joined, the number one real estate business in the country, in my view. It's a brand that, in real estate circles, if I introduce myself to someone and say, I work for the Marshall White Group, you don't need to say anything further than that. It's a very well respected brand. I'm lucky. Look, I've grown up. I've had a wild upbringing in the inner eastern suburbs of Melbourne. So it's a brand that I've seen around as well, and I have a lot of respect for the I always respected the caliber of agent and the caliber of properties that they represented. So, big attraction to the brand.
Good on you. Good on you. Good answer. I had two people that basically crossed over with their level of questions, and it's quite interesting when you say you're going to get the CEO on. People always think about the future and think that you've got the magic answer or the crystal ball to the future. So our man, who we both have some affection for, the great Ash Sachdev, Cool Indian 85 on Instagram, and a newcomer to Marshall White ranks Robert Lee, who's affectionately been coined Bobby Lee down at Team 1 Hawthorn with the great Ben Hillary. Both of them have basically asked, and I won't read them word for word, but where do you see the company and the industry going in the next 5 years? And maybe it's technology based, or, I mean, I think you made a great point earlier that if you went back 30 years, for example, not a lot has changed in terms of, your need and desire to connect with an individual or a family to be able to represent them in selling their piece of real estate. But what are the CEO's thoughts on the future of real estate in the next 5 years?
Okay, look, future real estate, there's definitely going to be some consolidation. You look at the size of our marketplace and the number of brands that have popped up in the past 10 years. You get some things like COVID happening. It will cause brands to consolidate, and there'll be some larger players that come out. So I strongly believe that will happen. The real estate model, I think, will probably fall into a couple of buckets. One of the things that I like about Marshall White's model is the markets that we actually operate in. They are very people and relationship based, and I think that's a really strong aspect of something that we do very, very well in maintaining those relationships. So I think a model like the Marshall White model will continue to thrive as long as we can maintain those really good relationships, but also have the systems and processes that people also come to expect. We can't be an archaic dinosaur in the way that we go to market, and we're definitely not. We're continuing to evolve that. So that probably leads to technology. More and more technology will come into the business, but that's to enable. That's not to replace agents, in my view. That's to actually enable the agents just to do their job better.
Yeah.
You asked before, what's the focus of the CEO? If I look specifically at sales, we want to take all the crap away from the salespeople to allow what you do really well, Matt, for example, is of maintaining relationships and helping people through their property journey, without getting bogged down in the admin side of the transaction of the business.
Yep.
So look, consolidation, continued uptake of technology. I think customer experience, or CX, will become a bigger differentiator in the industry as well.
It's funny you say that, Simon. My next question was from the great Yossi Ben Darnan, who literally has written, "How can agents improve the customer experience in your eyes?" Go for it.
Yeah, look, I'll actually steal a little something from Steve Carroll, who used to work for realestate.com.au.
Spoke at ARIC.
Yeah, spoke at ARIC. So Steve used to give a presentation, and look, a lot of people have used this analogy. You talk about customer experience. People don't compare us to the other real estate transaction that they have, because for most people, on average in Victoria, you have your property for about 7 years. So for the average punter out there, they're not dealing with the real estate market every day.
Yeah.
But what they do deal with is a lot of other consumer interactions. So you talk about customer experience. Don't benchmark yourself against the next real estate agent. Benchmark yourself against the next best consumer experience that you've actually had. There's so many analogies and examples that I can give, but I challenge everyone, think of that favorite consumer brand that you have. It might be even a local restaurant or something that you actually interact with, where you don't go, when you walk in, maybe it might be expensive or it might be cheap, but money's not the issue. You actually go there because you're actually getting a great experience.
Yep.
You're an advocate for the brand. and you'll go back there because you know next time you go back in, and it might be a restaurant. You know, you might just love the fact that, you know, that they know your name, or you can always get a table. But that makes you a real advocate. So customer experience is going to be a huge differentiator. But as I said, don't think about what the next real estate agent's doing. Think about what the next great customer experience brand is doing, and how do you improve that?
That is absolutely brilliant. That is spot on. If you go to a restaurant and you might have been there 12 times, but the owner takes a seat at your table to check in on how you and your family are going for 3 minutes. That 3 minutes can make the difference between you saying at your next dinner party, "Hey, have you been to XYZ restaurant? It is a bloody cracker. Joe, the owner's, you know, one of the greats, and he looks after me all the time." And Matt Pilios, there's a perfect example, Simon. People say, "How does he do it? How does he get so many listings? How does he do it?" People list with him because they think they're going to be looked after. He's going to help them. And it happens quite regularly. So, yeah, nice point.
Matty does. Yeah, and actually, speaking of that, I know I had lunch with Matty the week before Christmas, and we did walk into the restaurant, and straight away the restaurant manager was sitting. The owner was actually sitting at our table.
Yeah,
so,
amazing.
Good analogy.
Amazing. I've got some funny stuff coming through here. Mandy Stanley, you've got to wear many hats as the CEO in a diverse company. What do you credit to keeping yourself as dynamic as you do day to day? It's a nice little compliment.
Look, I do, bit cliche, but look, I do. You got to carve out a bit of me time every day. Yeah. I do try and exercise, even just walking the dog. I think it's important to actually just carve out a bit of calm time for yourself each day. I run quite a bit. I took up bike riding during lockdown too. As I said, when I can get out for a surf. So I think just carving out a bit of my time and just maintaining a good physical shape. Yeah.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility as a leader of the company to set a good example in that realm? I reckon you do.
Yeah, Matt, definitely. Look, we're very privileged to have, we've got 290 people that be it families, or they've got families that are relying on them, partners, kids, etc.
Yep.
So we need to make sure that we give them an environment that they can actually perform and be their best. And I think it is important that we set the right example for people, and but also respect the fact that everyone's individual.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone needs to start running or bike riding.
Good.
But just try and work out for the individual what's actually going to help them be successful and be their best person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. A very cheeky one. Is Matt Grima worth keeping on the books? That's from another. we won't be answering that one, please. Simon, well done. Available on iTunes, available on Spotify, Zoomcast with Matt Grima. You can search that. We've got our own Instagram page, which is simply _Zoomcast _ where you can see the interviews in their entirety. Or if you're like me and you like to just quicken up the podcast at 1.5 speed on a walk or a run or a bike ride, as Simon has touched on, then go to those platforms and you'll be able to hear every single episode. James Tostovan, Marcus Kiminello, the list goes on in terms of great performers. Simon, been a pleasure. I genuinely appreciate you coming on, particularly during another bloody lockdown period. You're a joy to listen to. You really are. I reckon we could have a part two one day.
Fingers crossed. We're back on deck Thursday morning. No, look, absolute pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to catching up with you face to face, hopefully in the next week or two.
Good on you. Likewise. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks, Matty. Cheers.